got too close with the DJ at my sister's wedding. Husband's response changed our entire family. If someone had said to me last year that one night of bad judgment can ruin all that I've created with the man I care for most in this world, I would not have taken them seriously. But here I am, sitting in my parents' guest room, staring at the ceiling, and desperately attempting to figure it out. Hi, I am Emma. I have been living with my husband for 6 years, though officially, we have been married for 4.5 years. We are not parents of children. At least we never thought anyone was essential for us until now. We are a family. It all started at my sister's wedding, a night that should have been full of joy and celebration. Instead, my careless actions sparked a chain of events that turned our lives upside down. I got too close with the DJ, closer than I should have, and Adam saw everything. What followed was a storm I wasn't prepared for, one that's left me questioning if I'll ever get back what I've lost. I didn't plan for this to happen, but I guess that's the thing about mistakes. You never see them coming until it's too late. Adam is a great man to me, loyal, and the person who makes me better. He is an engineer, and at the same time I have been home, operating an online business for the past couple of years. It was a basic but joyous life, because every life was ours. At least, I thought I was. Adam and I are very different people, but we always balanced each other out. He's the type who enjoys quiet weekends at home, reading or watching documentaries, while I thrive in social settings. I've always been the outgoing one, the one planning get-togethers, organizing dinners, and staying connected with friends and family. It wasn't uncommon for me to pull Adam out of his comfort zone for a party or two, and he always came along with a smile, even if it wasn't his favorite thing to do. We were different, but we loved each other because there was respect in the relationship. The good thing about the relationship between Adam and I was that I would accommodate my love for socialization, and he would accommodate my hated hate for solitary confinement. He never snuffed out my flame, and I always liked how he was supportive, even when I failed to reciprocate it. Now I think it was this support I lost sight of, and took it for granted more than it should have. The wedding we were attending was my younger sister Claire's. She's 4 years younger than me, and we've always been close. Claire's wedding was a big deal for our family. Months of planning, excitement, and anticipation went into it. My parents were thrilled. Claire was over the moon, and I was just happy to see my sister so excited about her big day. The crossing was smooth, of course, and as usual, Adam was ready to do whatever had to be done at the other end. While I was running around coordinating with Claire, whether it was putting up signage, getting people seated, grabbing chairs for the ceremony, etc., Adam was in the background, making sure the groom and groomsmen were ready and picked up on time, grabbing the flowers and bringing them to Claire, while keeping things calm during a stressful moment when things ran late. That's just who he is, always ready to help you, even if you never ask for it. The day of the wedding felt like a whirlwind of joy and celebration. The venue was stunning, the guests were dressed to the nines, and everything seemed perfect. I was in my element, catching up with family, making new friends, and dancing the night away. Adam, on the other hand, hung back, as he usually does, chatting with a few people he was comfortable with, and keeping a watchful eye on me as I worked the room. At some point, I started to feel the increasing enthusiasm, as if I am in the middle of something very interesting. In me, I have always been a social butterfly, but on this night, it becomes my biggest downfall. I was too busy worrying about fun times, enjoying myself, making for others laugh, to care or observe how Adam has changed, or how I was gradually fraying the very fabric of a marriage. The day of my sister Claire's wedding was absolutely perfect, at least. That's how it started. The venue was breathtaking, with beautiful floral arrangements, soft lighting, and a buzz of excitement in the air. It felt like one of those days you'd remember forever, where everything seemed to sparkle just a little brighter. Guests arrived dressed to the nines, laughter echoed throughout the hall, and Claire, glowing in her wedding dress, looked like she'd stepped out of a fairy tale. When the ceremony was over and the guests moved to the reception, the atmosphere was indeed charged. The DJ was a part of that. When he began playing, people knew this was one man who had mastered the art of entertaining a crowd. It wasn't just a man just standing behind the turntables, but he was energetic, making jokes and engaging the crowd and the guests. He had this certain aura about him. People were pulled to him, and certainly not long after that, the dance area was filled. I was in my element. I've always loved dancing and letting loose at weddings, and this was no exception. The music was amazing, the crowd was lively, and I was having a blast catching up with old friends and meeting new ones. I barely noticed how much time I was spending near the DJ booth until it became a pattern. It started innocently enough. I'd go over to request a song, thank him for playing such a great set, or just chat for a moment between songs. I think the main reason I got close with him was that he was friendly, and I never really paid much attention to what he was doing. He had this routine that puts life into people and makes them feel special, like the only person that matters in the room, and I fell for this. I was not encroaching into anybody's territory, or at least that was the running thought in my mind. It was harmless fun, right? Anyway, it was Claire's wedding, and nobody went there with a purpose of enjoying himself, herself, or not. But as the night went on, the interactions started to feel different. At one point, I was dancing near the DJ booth, and he made a comment about how I was bringing the energy to the dance floor. I laughed, brushing it off as a compliment, and kept dancing. Later, he offered me a drink he'd grabbed from the bar, saying I deserved it for being the life of the party. I didn't think much of it at the time. It was just a friendly gesture, I thought. When I reflect on it now, however, I can identify how such performances began building up. I was probably by the DJ booth for more time than necessary, talking, giggling, and even, yes, twerking. I wasn't exactly acting like a fool, but looking back, I was giving off the wrong signals or signs. I can't believe myself that I fell for that trap. Being still a rather attractive girl, I got carried away with the flow of the night and the attention I received, neglecting the fact that such behavior should be rather uncomfortable for Adam. Adam noticed. Of course he did. He's not the type to make a scene or call me out in front of everyone, but I could feel his eyes on me. I'd glance over and see him standing near the edge of the room, watching me with an expression I couldn't quite read. It wasn't anger, it was something quieter, almost like disappointment. I remember this moment. He came to me and tilted my face with the palm of his hand. "Emma," he whispered roughly, "I believe you spend too much time around this area," pointing at the DJ booth. I rolled my eyes and brushed him off. "Adam, it's nothing. I'm just having fun. Relax, okay?" I kissed him on the cheek and went back to the dance floor before he could say anything else. He did not pursue it further than that, but I could sense the change. What happened next was that Adam became more terse and even withdrawn. He was not socializing with people and guests as he normally does. He was not even smiling. I noticed, but I didn't stop. I must have been thinking, what have I done wrong? So why should I allow his bad temper to spoil my evening? By the end of the evening, I was still on a high from the party, oblivious to the storm I'd just set in motion. If I'd taken a moment to really see Adam's face or think about his words, maybe I would have realized that something was deeply wrong. But I didn't. I convinced myself that everything was fine, that Adam would understand it was just part of the celebration. I had no idea that night signified the beginning of the end. The moment everything changed started so subtly, I didn't even realize it at first. The party was in full swing, and the energy was infectious. The DJ was at the center of it all, keeping the crowd hyped and the dance floor packed. I'd already spent more time near him than I should have, but at that point, I wasn't thinking about boundaries. I was thinking about how much fun I was having. It started with me asking the DJ to play another song and demanding him to be louder to be heard over the bass. He nodded, smiled, and without delay, played my request. At the beginning, I received a small dose of adrenaline when the music I know so well played, and I smiled at him. "You're the best," I shouted over the music. He laughed and said, "Only for you," then gave me a smart wink to sweeten his words. I brushed it off, telling myself it was just harmless banter. But then, as I was dancing nearby, I caught him watching me. It wasn't an innocent glance. It lingered, and I didn't look away either. It felt like a little secret, a fleeting moment no one else could see. Such interactions were regular as we proceeded through the night. He would suddenly tell a joke, and I would laugh rather uncontrollably. Once he stepped out of the booth, citing a break he took, and together we waited off camera, talking. It was such a casual conversation that I can't remember what we were discussing, but I clearly recall how he tilted forward a little, how his fingers brushed my arm as he chuckled. It was that subtle that I had to dismiss it, thinking that it was never a big deal. But it wasn't nothing. People started to notice. I saw a few raised eyebrows from guests nearby, some whispering as they glanced our way. My sister Claire's maid of honor gave me a pointed look, almost like a warning, but I ignored it. I was having fun. Why should I let anyone else's judgment ruin my night? Adam noticed too. He had been loitering around for nearly all the evening, mingling with only some of our relatives and observing us closely. But for some reason, when he came over and saw that I was standing really close to the DJ, smiling and leaning in to speak to him, I guess something changed. I felt his presence before I even saw him. He walked up to me and the DJ, his jaw tight and his expression unreadable. "Emma," he said, his voice low but firm. "Can I talk to you for a second?" The DJ quickly backed up, realizing the mood, and I walked away with Adam. "What's the problem?" I said this, attempting to make it sound like a casual question. "The problem," he said, his voice trembling slightly, "is that you're acting completely inappropriate. Do you even realize how this looks? To me? To everyone else here?" I sighed, dismissively waving off his worry. "Adam, it's not a big deal. We're just talking," he added. "Don't make this into something it is not." He stared at me for a long moment, his jaw clenched. "Emma, you're dancing with him, laughing with him, spending more time with him than with me. Do you not see how disrespectful that is?" I saw anger and pain in his eyes, but I was too angry and aggressive to say sorry, and I was wrong. "Stop making a big deal out of this," I responded, folding my arms over my chest. "It's Claire's wedding. It's all good fun for everyone here, really. And you? Why are you trying to ruin it?" Adam shook his head, his voice barely above a whisper. "I'm not trying to ruin anything, Emma. I'm trying to figure out when I became invisible to you." That hit harder than I expected, but I didn't know how to respond. Instead of acknowledging his feelings, I doubled down. "You're blowing this out of proportion," I snapped. "I'm not doing anything wrong." He didn't say anything after that. He just looked at me for a moment longer, then turned and walked away. I felt a pang of guilt as I watched him go, but I pushed it aside. I convinced myself he was being overly sensitive, that he'd cool off and everything would be fine. But things weren't fine. I could feel the shift in the room after that. People were watching me differently, their whispers growing louder. Even Claire gave me a concerned look when I passed her on the way back to the dance floor. I knew I'd crossed a line, but I didn't know how to fix it, or maybe I didn't want to admit that it needed fixing. Adam spent the rest of the night sitting quietly at a table near the back of the room. He wasn't sulking or making a scene, he was just there, staring at nothing in particular. I avoided looking at him because every time I did, I felt a mix of shame and defiance that I didn't want to confront. The DJ, oblivious to the tension, continued to play, and I stayed on the dance floor, trying to lose myself in the music. But no matter how hard I tried, I couldn't shake the weight of Adam's expression, the quiet anger and hurt that lingered in his eyes. By the time the night ended, I knew something had shifted between us. I didn't know how deep the damage was yet, but I could feel it. Adam didn't say a word as we left the venue, his silence louder than any argument we could have had. And in the pit of my stomach, I knew this wasn't something that would just blow over. This was the beginning of something I couldn't undo. The car ride home from my sister's wedding was silent, so silent that it felt deafening. Adam kept his eyes on the road, his hands gripping the steering wheel tightly. I sat next to him, staring out the window, trying to come up with something to say. But nothing felt right. The weight of his silence pressed down on me, making me feel small and uncomfortable. When we pulled into the driveway, Adam got out of the car without a word and walked straight into the house. I hesitated for a moment, sitting there in the darkness, before finally following him inside. He was already in the living room, sitting on the couch with his head in his hands. The sight of him, like that of a man who was usually so calm and collected, made my stomach churn with guilt. "Adam," I started, my voice barely above a whisper. "Can we talk?" He didn't look up. "What's there to talk about, Emma?" I bit my lip, unsure how to respond. I feel like you're upset about something that wasn't a big deal. It was a wedding. People were dancing, having fun. That's all it was. Adam finally lifted his head, and the look in his eyes stopped me in my tracks. It wasn't just anger, it was hurt, disappointment, and something else I couldn't quite place. "Do you really think what you did tonight was okay?" he asked, his voice quiet but firm. I hesitated, feeling defensive. "I didn't do anything wrong, Adam. I wasn't flirting. I wasn't trying to cross any lines. I was just enjoying myself." He let out a bitter laugh and shook his head. "Enjoying yourself? Emma, you spent half the night with the DJ, laughing, dancing, acting like I wasn't even there. Do you know how that made me feel? How did it look to everyone else?" I felt my face flush with frustration. "Adam, you're reading too much into this. It's not like I did anything inappropriate. People were just having fun, and you're making it into something it's not." He stood up then, towering over me in a way that felt almost intimidating, not because he was trying to be, but because of the sheer force of his emotions. "Do you even hear yourself, Emma? You're not taking any responsibility for what you did tonight. You embarrassed me, you disrespected me, and now you're sitting here acting like it's nothing." I crossed my arms, trying to keep my composure. "It is nothing, Adam. You're the one blowing it out of proportion." His jaw tightened, and he looked away, shaking his head again. "I don't even know who you are right now." The tension in the room was unbearable. I wanted to defend myself, to make him see my side, but I also knew deep down that he wasn't entirely wrong. I had crossed a line, even if I didn't want to admit it to myself. Over the next few days, things only got worse. Adam withdrew into himself, barely speaking to me. He'd come home from work, eat dinner in silence, and retreat to the bedroom or his office. The warmth that had always been a part of our relationship was gone, replaced by an icy distance I didn't know how to bridge. I tried to bring it up a few times, hoping to smooth things over. "Adam, can we please talk about this? I feel like you're shutting me out." His responses were always curt and cold. "What's there to talk about? You've already made it clear how you feel." I started to feel desperate. I wanted things to go back to normal, but I didn't know how to fix it. In my mind, he was overreacting, and if I just gave him enough time, he'd move past it. But that wasn't what happened. Instead, the gap between us grew wider. It wasn't just his silence, it was the way he looked at me, like he didn't trust me anymore. I'd catch him glancing at my phone when it buzzed or lingering near the door when I was on a call. It was subtle at first, but it became more noticeable as the days went on. One evening, as I was scrolling through social media on the couch, Adam walked into the room and sat across from me. "Did anything else happen with the DJ that you're not telling me?" I stared at him, caught off guard by the question. "What? No, of course not. Why would you even ask that?" He studied my face, his eyes narrowing slightly. "Because I can't shake the feeling that there's more to this than what you're saying. You keep brushing it off like it's nothing, but it doesn't feel like nothing to me." I felt my chest tighten. "Adam, I swear nothing happened. You're being paranoid." He didn't respond right away. Instead, he leaned back in his chair, crossing his arms. "Maybe I am, or maybe I'm just starting to realize that I don't know you as well as I thought I did." His words stung more than I expected, and for a moment I didn't know what to say. I wanted to tell him he was wrong, to convince him that I hadn't done anything to betray him, but the look in his eyes told me he wouldn't believe me, no matter what I said. That night, I lay in bed next to him, staring at the ceiling while he slept on the far edge of the mattress. The space between us felt insurmountable, and for the first time I started to wonder if we'd ever find our way back to each other. A few days after the wedding, I thought the worst was behind us. Adam was still distant, but I convinced myself that with time, things would go back to normal. I had no idea the storm that was about to hit. It started when I left my phone on the kitchen counter while I went to take a shower. Adam, usually the kind of person who wouldn't invade my privacy, must have been stewing in his thoughts for too long. When I came back downstairs, I found him sitting on the couch, my phone in his hand, his face pale and tense. "Emma," he said, his voice trembling. "Who is this?" I froze, my heart sinking. He was holding up my phone, showing me a message I had received from the DJ. It was short and casual, just a, Had a great time at the wedding. You really made the night fun, but it was enough to make Adam snap. Why is he texting you? Adam demanded, his voice rising. You gave him your number? I tried to stay calm, even though my stomach was in knots. It's not what you think, Adam. He asked for my number at the wedding, just in case there were any song requests or something. I didn't think it was a big deal. Adam let out a bitter laugh. Not a big deal? Emma, you were practically glued to him the entire night, and now you're texting him? How is this not a big deal? I stammered, trying to explain. He sent one message, Adam. That's it. I didn't even reply. You're blowing this way out of proportion. His eyes flashed with anger. Blowing it out of proportion? Do you have any idea how humiliating that night was for me? Watching my wife act like that in front of everyone? And now I find out you're texting him? I could feel my defenses crumbling under the weight of his accusations. I wasn't texting him. He sent one message. I didn't do anything wrong. Adam stood up, pacing the room, his hands running through his hair. You don't get it, do you? It's not just about the message, Emma. It's about everything. The way you treated me that night. The way you acted like I wasn't even there. The way you're still refusing to take any responsibility for your actions. His words hit me like a ton of bricks, but I still couldn't bring myself to admit that he was right. I didn't cheat on you, Adam. Why are you acting like I did? He stopped pacing and turned to face me, his voice lower but no less intense. Maybe you didn't cheat, but you sure as hell disrespected me. You embarrassed me in front of everyone we know. You made me feel like I don't even matter to you. For a moment, the room was silent except for the sound of our breathing. Then he said something that made my blood run cold. I can't do this anymore, Emma. My chest tightened. What do you mean? He exhaled deeply, his voice breaking slightly. I mean, I'm done. I can't stay in a marriage where I'm constantly disrespected. I can't keep pretending like everything's okay when it's not. I felt panic rising in my chest. Adam, don't say that. We can work through this. Please, just give me a chance to fix it. He shook his head, his expression a mix of sadness and resolve. I've given you chances, Emma. I've been patient. I've tried to talk to you, but you don't listen. You don't see how your actions affect me. I don't think you ever have. Tears welled up in my eyes as I reached out to him. Adam, please, I'm sorry. I'll do better. He stepped back, avoiding my touch. I don't want to hear it, Emma. I've heard it all before, and nothing changes. That's when he dropped the bombshell. I'm moving out. I'm going to stay with my brother for a while. I need time to think, and I need space from you. My heart sank. You're leaving me? For now, he said, his voice heavy with emotion. I don't know what the future holds, but I can't stay here like this. It's killing me. I begged him to stay, but he was resolute. He packed a bag that night, his movements slow and deliberate. I followed him around the house, pleading with him to reconsider, but he wouldn't look at me. Before he walked out the door, he turned to me one last time. Emma, I loved you. I still do. But love isn't enough when there's no respect. You need to figure out what you want, and so do I. And just like that, he was gone. I stood in the doorway, watching him drive away, my mind racing with regret and disbelief. The silence that followed was unbearable. I sat on the couch, staring at my phone, reading and rereading the DJ's message. That one small text had been the final straw, but the truth was this had been building for a long time. I had been blind to how my actions were affecting Adam, and now I was paying the price. The next day, Adam's family called me. They were polite but firm, making it clear that they supported his decision. His brother even came by to pick up more of his things, refusing to engage in any conversation with me. I had never felt so alone in my life. The weight of my mistakes was crushing, and for the first time, I realized that Adam might not come back. This wasn't just a fight. This was the breaking point, and I had no one to blame but myself. After Adam left, the ripple effects of what happened spread quickly. At first, I tried to keep it quiet, hoping we could work things out privately, but that didn't last long. My sister Claire was the first to call, her voice a mix of concern and confusion. Emma, what's going on? Adam just called to say he's staying with his brother for a while. Is everything okay? I froze, unsure of how much to tell her. We had a fight, I admitted, trying to downplay it. It's nothing serious. He just needs some space. But Claire wasn't buying it. Emma, he sounded upset. This isn't like Adam. What happened? I eventually told her bits and pieces, but I left out the details about the DJ. I wasn't ready to admit how badly I'd messed up, not even to my own sister. Claire tried to be supportive, but I could hear the disappointment in her voice. You need to fix this, Emma, she said softly. Adam's a good man. Don't let one mistake ruin everything. My parents, on the other hand, weren't as gentle. When they found out, my mom called me immediately, her tone sharp and filled with frustration. Emma, how could you let this happen? Adam has been nothing but good to you, and now you're telling me he left? What were you thinking? I felt like a child being scolded. Mom, I didn't mean for any of this to happen. It's not as bad as it sounds. She sighed heavily. Emma, you need to take responsibility for your actions. You embarrassed him in front of everyone at that wedding, and now the whole family is talking about it. That was the worst part of the gossip. News spread fast in our family, and soon everyone seemed to know. Cousins, aunts, uncles all had their opinions, and most of them weren't kind. I started getting calls and messages from people I hadn't spoken to in years, all of them either praying for details or offering unsolicited advice. Emma, I heard about what happened at Claire's wedding, one cousin texted. Are you okay? But it wasn't a genuine concern. It was thinly veiled curiosity, and I could feel the judgment in every word. Things were even worse with Adam's family. His brother, who he was staying with, made it clear that they were fully on Adam's side. When I tried to call to check on him, his brother answered and said flatly, "He doesn't want to talk to you right now." His mom, who had always been warm and welcoming to me, was now distant. Emma, she said during one brief phone call, we love you, but we need to support Adam right now. He's been hurt deeply, and we can't just pretend everything's fine. It was like I'd been cut off from an entire side of my life. I had always thought of Adam's family as my own, but now they saw me as the villain. They didn't want to hear my side of the story or give me a chance to explain. To them, I had betrayed their son, and that was unforgivable. The worst moment came when Claire admitted that even some of her friends had started talking about it. Emma, people are saying things, she told me, her voice hesitant, about you and the DJ. It's not just family anymore, it's everyone who was at the wedding. Hearing that broke me. The idea that my actions had not only hurt Adam but also damaged my family's reputation was devastating. Claire tried to reassure me, saying, "People will move on eventually. They always do." But I wasn't so sure. I felt like I was being judged from every angle. My parents were disappointed, Adam's family was furious, and even my friends seemed distant. The isolation was suffocating, and for the first time I realized how much I had taken for granted. My family, my marriage, my friendships, I had put all of it at risk with one night of bad decisions. Now I was left to pick up the pieces, and I didn't know if I had the strength to do it. Sitting alone in what used to be our home, the silence is deafening. It's hard to describe the mix of emotions I feel: regret, shame, and overwhelming sadness. I've spent so many nights replaying everything in my mind, wishing I could go back and make different choices. If only I had listened to Adam that night. If only I'd taken his feelings seriously instead of brushing them aside. The truth is, I underestimated him. I thought Adam would always stay, no matter what. I thought he'd overlook my behavior because he loved me, but I was wrong. His decision to leave wasn't just about that one night with the DJ, it was about a pattern I didn't even realize I was creating. I pushed boundaries, took his kindness for granted, and assumed his silence meant acceptance. Now I'm left to face the consequences of my actions. Adam isn't here to cook dinner with me or share quiet evenings on the couch. The house feels empty without him, and every little thing reminds me of what I've lost. His favorite coffee mug sitting untouched, the book he left on the nightstand, even the way his side of the bed still smells like him. It's a constant reminder of the life we built and how I shattered it. The judgment from others hasn't gone away either. Friends, family, even neighbors, it feels like everyone knows what happened, and no one sees me the same way anymore. I've tried to put on a brave face, but the whispers and side glances cut deep. I feel like I've lost not just Adam, but the respect of everyone around me. I want to fix things, but I don't know if that's even possible. I've tried reaching out to Adam, sending long messages apologizing and asking for another chance. But his responses, when they come, are short and distant. He's made it clear that he's not ready to forgive me, and I don't blame him. The hardest part is knowing that I did this to myself. Adam didn't deserve to be treated the way I treated him, and I can't undo the pain I caused. All I can do now is hope that someday, somehow, he'll see how sorry I am and give me the chance to prove I can be better. But deep down, I know I may have lost him for good. Update. This is where my story ends, at least for now. Adam hasn't come back, and I've accepted that he might never. His decision to leave was a wake-up call, a painful but necessary reminder that actions have consequences, and love alone isn't enough to sustain a marriage. His response wasn't just about walking away, it was about standing up for himself, for his worth, and for the respect he deserved. I can't blame him for leaving. I took him for granted, pushed him beyond his limits, and ignored the quiet ways he tried to tell me he was hurting. Now, I'm left to rebuild my life alone, facing the reality that I destroyed the very foundation of what we had. The hardest part isn't the loneliness or the judgment from others. It's knowing that I could have prevented all of this. I have learned the hard way that trust, once broken, is almost impossible to repair. I don't know what the future holds, but for now, I'm focusing on moving forward, one step at a time. Whether or not Adam forgives me, I hope I can become someone worthy of the love I once had and lost.